Darkcast Network. Welcome to the dark side of podcasting.
Witchcraft, the occult, extremist beliefs, murder. Tune in to Rogue Darkness each Friday and join host Raven as I uncover horrific crimes committed under the misconceptions and misunderstandings of witchcraft and other belief systems. I'll cover a wide range of crimes involving ritualistic killings and extremist beliefs to cult persuasion and supposed possession. Anything and everything that borders the line of horrifying. There's always three sides to a story. Side A, Side B, and then the truth. Let's uncover the truth together and explore the darkness of mankind, one crime at a time. Available wherever you get your podcast fix, simply by searching Rogue Darkness.
Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot.
Hey, y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders.
I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
Hey, Mr. Packer. How are you today?
Hello. I'm just hanging out.
You just hanging out.
Just enjoying my Monday.
You never enjoy Mondays.
So stupid.
I swear, Sunday evening, just before it's time to make the donuts.
Yeah.
You give me the most sad, defeated looks, and I think you're about to cry, and you'll always threaten, I'm calling in.
I'm quitting
and
today.
I know you're not gonna.
Yeah. Today's the day.
And this is just a pattern that we repeat every Sunday, because the Sunday night shift into your Monday morning, it always sucks.
It's a tough one.
It's like never a good one, right?
It's tough. Yeah. So here we are hanging out.
A lot of folks feel that way about you've got a case of the Mondays.
You know, I've noticed lately I've been getting a case of them all weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've called a case of the all weeks. It's just like it's kind of like the Mondays, but you know, it's just it's all week. So, you know.
I feel like you've been that way since I met you.
Yeah, well, you know.
You've never wanted to go to work. You always want to stay home.
Yeah. I mean, this system that we have developed as, quote unquote civilization is pretty ridiculous.
This modern society.
Yeah. I think we should all be able to, I think our currency should be chilling, you know, our chill time as Zane would say.
Here's the thing, Dylan. And yes, my son does love to have his quote, chill time.
Yeah.
If you were given the opportunity to just stay home, you're independently wealthy all of a sudden, I'm not sure you would make good use of your time.
You don't think so?
I'm not. What would you do to fill your days?
See,
because you like to just sit around and couch and TV and like smoke.
Well, yeah.
And then maybe like have a snack and then have another snack. And then maybe just chill some more.
Yeah, and then
take
maybe
a nap.
Walk around a little bit because you've been eating too many. You ever mix the wrong kind of snacks and you realize
I think we all have
the hot fries with the milk. It's not really agreeing with you.
Gosh, no, that doesn't seem like a good choice.
You know, out of this, what would happen is, and this is the idea of once we kind of transcend as a species, you know, and the robots take over all the menial work and stuff like that, is that we'll be able to like kind of get back to our roots and just kind of lay around and philosophize, right?
Oh, those are your roots?
and philosophy.
You trying to tell me your great grandpa was like Socrates?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was actually Socrates because he had bad teeth. No.
What is wrong with you?
But, and so, we'll actually start creating again as a civilization. And
I've been creating. I've created all day.
But, that's a romantic notion. But in my mind, I know actually we would be like, was it Wall-E? Where the ship was the all fat people?
I never saw that.
Yeah, and they go around with their big drinks, and I have robots that do everything for them, and everybody's like really fat. That's what we'd actually be.
So basically, America 2024 is what you're saying.
Well, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm very productive.
Yeah, and
I would just continue to be a productive person.
And see, the way I look
at creating.
Everybody plays their part, in this play we call life.
Is that it?
Yeah.
I feel like I would just be stuck doing everything, kind of like now.
But, I do stuff. Anyway.
Sometimes.
I have very spurts of ultra production. And this is where my nickname came from.
I'm very proud of you, okay? You really took our Thanksgiving conversation to heart because Saturday we had friends over. Hey, Brian and Santa. Had a little lovely dinner with our friends, and you pitched in. You cleaned. You were very helpful. You even made the pasta. I made the pasta dough, but you made the fresh pasta. You were running it through the little pasta maker.
I was
cranking it out,
rolling that pasta. Y'all.
You were, and I was proud of you. You did something.
Well, I like to keep the bar low because then. I've worked with many super veterans in my day, and they don't want the expectations to get too high.
Okay.
And they don't want people to realize what your abilities actually are, because then they're going to want you to kind of perform at that level all the time.
Well, see, you showed me this shiny, accomplished version of yourself. It's like hand making pasta and shit.
Yeah.
So now I have these expectations that you're just going to always deliver a fresh, clean house and homemade pasta.
See, I done fucked up.
You fucked up. Yeah, fucked up, Dylan.
All right, here we are in this week. We're already, is it officially winter yet? Because I don't think,
Thinks maybe. I don't know.
See, all my life, I went and I was like, okay, it's wintertime now. I was off like a month and a half.
In the winter solstice, like December 21st or something.
Yeah, I want to say like the very end of December through say the end of February is actual winter.
Actually, Dylan, the winter solstice is typically happens in the northern hemisphere around the 21st or 22nd of December.
Okay.
And it's the shortest day of the year with the least amount of sunlight.
Yeah. And that's why they would burn the Yule log, waiting for the sun to rise again the next day.
I don't want to burn your log, I can tell you that.
Oh, gosh. I don't want you to burn my log. Damn.
Okay, so real quick before we get started, the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, they have a man suspected of shooting him in custody, Luigi Mangione. He was arraigned on Monday in Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania.
Oh.
He's been charged with 5 counts per court papers, 1 felony of count of forgery, 1 felony count of carrying a firearm without a license, 1 misdemeanor count of tampering with records or identification, 1 misdemeanor count of possessing instruments of a crime, 1 misdemeanor count of false identification to law enforcement authorities.
Whoa. Well, what about the one felonious count of murdering someone?
Well, Mangione, a 26-year-old whose last known address was in Honolulu, has been identified as a person of interest in the Midtown Manhattan shooting last week. They have not formally charged him with any murder. I guess they're still investigating. But he was arrested at a McDonald's in Altoona, Pennsylvania on firearms charges after an employee recognized him from photos that the NYPD had circulated nationwide.
Oh.
So this story will, I'm sure, unfold in the coming days. One fact I do know about him is that Mangione quoted the Unabomber manifesto on Goodreads and gave it 4 stars.
What? Okay. Well, hey, look, you're not being honest with you. If you can read the Unabomber's manifesto and remove the crazy blowing up people aspect of it, he has some good points.
He makes some good points.
He makes some really clear, concise.
We're already probably on a watch list or several.
Well, yeah.
So I'm just gonna go ahead and say, yeah. I mean, he was on to something.
He certainly had an idea about what direction society was headed in,
where technology was going to take us.
And it went there.
Yeah,
it really did.
And it's not necessarily been a good thing.
No, I do not condone blowing people up with mail bombs.
No, instead I blow them up with glitter bombs. Fabulous.
Oh God, and you never get rid of the glitter.
Sparkles.
You know that if somebody puts a glitter bomb off in your home, there'll be glitter there for the next 1,000 years. You can never get it all gone.
Hello.
You know, I must say,
everybody needs a little sparkle in their day.
We were carrying on when this first happened about, hey, obviously don't condone this. But, we're not surprised that, maybe in a way society's lashing back out against these insurance companies. But I got to say, it's kind of gross how far, this man was killed. Agree or disagree with what sector or what business he was in. He had a family, friends, and he was murdered in cold blood in a very kind of a very extra cold way. You know what I mean? And I think, and people, there's memes and, people carrying on about it. I saw a T-shirt that's basically a frame. It's drawn, but it's a frame from the video.
I think I saw that.
That says something on it. And it's just, I'm just like, this is not okay.
Yeah, it has some salacious phrase.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is too much. This is kind of gross. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what we do in 2024. We take it a little bit too far, Dylan.
Yeah. He was a man. Like, again, if you don't agree or not what he did for a living, he didn't deserve that. And, so.
No comment. I'm moving along here, Dylan.
Gee, quoting the Unabomber, no comment about the man being shot.
Our listeners know that I am a little unhinged and that I'm just an anarchist at heart.
I don't mind being on watch lists because they can come watch me all they want. They be like, man, this guy ain't going to hurt nobody.
I would get tired of watching you. I'd be like, does he ever move?
Oh, my God. What is he watching? Bar Rescue?
Gosh, he wallers in that bed a lot.
Jesus. Who watches Bar Rescue 2024?
How does he waller the sheets off the bed like that? You do love Bar Rescue. We've got to get on with it. It's like 20 minutes in and we still hadn't got to our case.
That's my new trash TV right now. It's ridiculous.
Okay. I just have to quickly say your watching of Bar Rescue totally disgusts me. I cannot watch it again. And it has made me feel some type of way about going out to bars and restaurants because now I'm so paranoid that every place is fucking disgusting and that they have like black mold sitting out next to like a bucket of 4-day-old chicken breasts.
Yeah. And they're throwing that in the fryer.
Yes.
Giving it to you.
Yes. I just can't. I can't anymore.
All right.
I already have no social life, and you're definitely ruining it for me by watching Bar Rescue.
We went to an in-person Bar Rescue bar the last time we went out, and it was fucking disgusting.
Tapper needs to come in and rescue that place.
Look, I'm not going to mention names, but it was disgusting.
Look, we have and I won't name names, but we had a local bar that was kind of sticky and gross, dive bar,
but fun.
But it was our jam, and so we kind of compare every bar to like, is it on par with the sticky bar or what? And if it's not even like, if it's less than the sticky bar, we're like, okay, this place is in trouble, right? And we went into this place and we were like, this place is grosser than our bar back home.
Yeah, by far. Like, I'm pretty sure I caught chlamydia. just drinking a beer
The
out of the bottle.
bathroom was the most disgusting bathroom I've ever been in. If you've ever seen that scene in Train Spotting where Ewan McGregor goes in like the grossest bathroom in Scotland or whatever, and it's just like a shit bomb went off.
Yeah.
And not a glitter bomb, not a unibomb, but a shit bomb. That's kind of what this bathroom reminded me of. And I'm thinking, how do grown-ass women do this in a bathroom and just like leave this kind of mess? How was you raised? And then on the little weird windy hallway back to the actual bar, you pass by this abandoned kitchen that looks like a scene from a Saw movie.
It literally did.
And I kept saying to you, like, there's no way they can make food in that kitchen because it was fucking gross. And you're like, no, I'm pretty sure I saw people eating like wings and stuff.
Yeah.
In the bar. So surely they had that food door dashed. It couldn't come from that bar.
Okay.
But it was disgusting. And I had like a mixed drink and it made me so sick that I was like sick the whole next day. And I told you, I'm pretty sure I got like E. coli from the juice or something.
Yeah.
So we'll never go there again. But we're also not going to tell you where it is in case you guys decide to go there.
Yeah.
Just
It's like playing Russian roulette with bars.
I don't want you to miss out on the opportunity.
No, because we want your honest opinion.
Okay, Dylan, are we ready to get into this week's case? It's a wild one.
Okay,
Now, when I say it's a wild one, it is not on par with the Sexton family incest band.
Oh wow, I have that
Traveling Road Trip Nightmare.
I have that on vinyl.
But it's an unusual case, and I think folks will scratch their heads and think, "What the heck?"
Okay, I don't know much about this one, so I can't wait to get started. Let's do it.
Dive right in.
Let's go.
The last time family saw Fred Wilkerson was Thanksgiving of 1987 when he was at the home of his sister Jewel Lee in LaGrange, Georgia. Fred was a truck driver who worked for fast food merchandisers. Fred informed his family that he was headed home to catch some sleep because he had to deliver in Tennessee the next morning. Now, Dylan, you work around truckers.
Yeah.
It's an arduous job.
Well, I mean, you're usually dealing with a lot of timelines, and then you got the unknowns of the public and traffic thrown in everything you do, which could get old quick, I'm sure. And yeah.
So rest is very important for these drivers.
Well, yeah, you're driving these, who knows what, loaded, who knows if it's properly loaded. They have to be it's very, I would think, emotionally stressful job. You know what I mean? Maybe more so than physically sometimes.
Fred usually had to be up around 5 a.m. Tim, Fred's son, had agreed to make the trip out of state with his father, which he did on occasion. Tim had plans to see friends that evening, but told his dad, Fred, that he would be home later. When Tim arrived back home on Friday, November 28th of 1987, just after midnight, he fully expected to find his father, Fred, in bed asleep. Yet Fred was not home. Now, this immediately wasn't cause for concern for Tim. Fred was punctual, responsible when it came to work, rarely absent, so Tim assumed his father would be back in time to make the Tennessee trip. Tim saw Fred's overnight bag packed for the trip. Fred had explained that they needed to leave the warehouse by 5 a.m. The schedule was designated, it had like these designated appointment times. So it was pretty critical to be on time for these deliveries. Now, as the day wore on with no sign of Fred, Tim became increasingly concerned. So Thursday night has bled over into Friday morning. The hours are wearing on. Fred's still a no-show. And his son knows like he's supposed to be in Tennessee. He's missing work. Hasn't heard from him.
Well, yeah, you take someone who's usually, you can count on them or they never kind of disappear. At first you're going to be like, no big deal, or maybe something happened, a small emergency or something. But if that, have you ever been in any type of situation where someone's kind of missing? Because I can't remember ever really being, knowing of someone who's in a situation like that.
Well, my cousins have been missing for 3 years
Oh,
now.
yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot about
So, yeah.
that.
I mean, it's hard. You know, your mind goes in a million places.
We're just wondering.
And you don't know. Yeah. I mean, it's that unknown that haunts you.
Right.
So as the day wears on, there's no sign of Fred. Tim is, becoming worried. He's got this sinking feeling, and he just can't imagine that his dad has left town without him. He hoped Fred had made it to work and maybe had simply gone on. There was no explanation that he could find, but he knew there had to be something happening.
Well,
Maybe he just doesn't understand what's happening, but he knew there had to be like some kind of explanation for this.
Well, I think that's his brain's way of trying to rationalize this kind of a scary situation. Like, well, surely it's just I don't know all the information or, something like that. But, when you're trying to convince yourself that maybe your dad just ended up going on without you, was late, and just had to go. But then all his stuff, his personal belongings, his overnight bag. And I will say I've noticed truckers are fairly regimented in the way they go about their business. You know what I'm saying? There are little things they like to bring with them, stuff like that. They do it all, you can count on it. You know what I mean?
Tim showed up at the warehouse to find his father's truck loaded and waiting. Fred had never shown up for work. Now, by now, frantic Tim is calling his sister Tracy. After hours of uncertainty, Tim finally files a report with the Troup County Sheriff's Office, but is told with an adult they need to wait 48 hours before declaring Fred missing. And we hear this time and time again. And we also know that first 48 hours is so crucial in solving a crime or solving a case and in missing persons cases, because the missing person's face is fresh in the minds of people.
You remember someone arguing the day before or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas in 3 or 4 or 5, 10 days later, you may not recall having seen that person at a gas station or at the grocery store or some scene that at the time you didn't realize was suspicious, but looking back, you're like, wait a minute, there's that person. Maybe this is strange, right? Now, Tim begins contacting family and friends, but no one has seen Fred. For the next 2 days, they try to locate him. They create flyers. They organize searches. A missing persons report is finally filed, yet no one can locate Fred Wilkerson. But there had been some trouble, Dylan. Fred had divorced his wife, Carolyn, after 21 years of marriage due to an extramarital relationship with a woman at his previous job.
No. Right quick, I guess they have to have some kind of standard for reporting, because I'm sure there's a ton of people just having their lines of communication cross and, getting confused and then thinking someone's missing when they're really not. But I think they should take factors into account, right? If you can say, well, they're an adult, they can do what they want. That's what they always say typically. But if all their personal belongings are at home, their wallet, their keys, their phone, everything, and they're missing, I mean, that's kind of a red flag, right?
After the divorce, Fred had spent his life savings purchasing 23 acres of land in order to build a home for the woman he thought would be his wife. Instead, Fred no longer had that job and had lost everything when the relationship soured. Now, it seems the initial investigation into Fred's disappearance fell into the age-old trap. With so many adult missing persons cases, the, investigation doesn't really go anywhere. Investigators monitored Fred's social security number for activity. There was none, and it would take years to learn the truth.
Oh my gosh.
Now, on April 13th of 1938, Willie Fred Wilkerson was born to parents Alma and Zelmer, who lived in Randolph County, Alabama. It was the Great Depression, and Fred's family, like so many others, struggled to etch out a meager living. Zelmer found work as a carpenter and on construction jobs when he could to supplement money, which meant that Alma was left to work the farm alone. While Alma worked in the field, 9-year-old Jewel tended to her baby brother, Fred. Jewel would take on the role for the rest of her life as a caretaker for her little brother. Their bond was strong, and Fred always knew he could depend on his big sister, Jewel. So they were very close. Jewel left high school during her junior year, married a local boy, and they moved to LaGrange, Georgia in the early 1950s. Though Fred remained on the family farm and finished high school in Alabama, he spent as much time as possible with Jewel and her husband, Durrell.
What? Durrell?
Durrell. Durrell.
That's spelled like a sound.
Every time I look at it, I think Duracell, and so I have to fight to not call him Duracell.
Oh my gosh, it's like one of those noise bubbles that would pop up in the old Batman series, like bam, pow, Durrell.
Oh gosh. There's a lot of these old, especially when you get into like Appalachia and the South, these kind of oddball names, or they're spelled kind of weird, but then maybe pronounced in a different way.
Yeah.
Like I had a great aunt and her name was Bernice, but it was spelled Bernice, but they called her Bernice. And like my bestie, her grandpa was Furl, but it was spelled like Farrell, but everybody called him Furl.
Okay.
So you got Durrell, which maybe
Daryl?
Maybe they were trying to say Daryl. I mean,
seriously.
You just don't, I don't know.
Well, I don't know. And given that spelling,
somebody out there whose son's name is Durrell is yelling at us like, it's a good name.
Yeah.
Heather and
Why
Dylan.
did you name me that, Mom? It's a fine name, Durrell. Shut up, Durrell.
When Jewel had 2 daughters, Fred assumed more of a brotherly role with the girls rather than that of an uncle. When Fred finished school in 1958, he moved into the Sanders home in Georgia. So he moves in with a sister and brother-in-law. Fred knew there was little opportunity on the family farm. Fred found work as a route salesman for a cigar and candy company, serving gas stations in the area. It was at the Yellow Jacket service station owned by Jack Lee that Fred met Carolyn Lee. Jack's daughter caught his eye and love bloomed. On May 1st of 1961, Fred and Carolyn were married. Tracy was born in 1964, and 4 years later, they welcomed their son, Tim. Now, like most marriages, they had ups and downs, but for 21 years, the couple made it work while raising their children. According to Tracy and Tim, Fred was a very present father, and their home was filled with love and support. So Connie King was born in 1945 in Clay County, West Virginia, into poverty. Her father was a coal miner, and the family had nothing. They lived in a shack with no running water and only ate what they were able to raise or hunt. And as we know, Dylan, Appalachia, particularly in places like West Virginia, were some of the poorest in the country, especially during the 1940s and 1950s. It was a very hard scrabble life. With a rough upbringing where every day was a fight for survival, Connie knew one thing. She would do whatever it took to get out of poor West Virginia. She met an engineering student named Gary. Okay. You know how I'm with last names. I think it's Quedens.
Right.
Quedens. Quedens. Does that sound right?
It's either Quedens or Quedens.
Okay. Well,
the absence of 2 E's would make me go with maybe the shorter E sound. Oh, damn, dude. Look at the big brain on Dylan.
Well, look, she's marrying Gary Q, who was matriculating at the University of West Virginia. Gary was hardworking, putting himself through school by working at a freight terminal. Just like you, Dylan.
Yeah,
Except
baby.
you ain't putting yourself through school. You just putting yourself through the ringer.
I'm just put myself through life.
Connie saw Gary as a ticket out of the regional poverty that she knew all too well. And in 1963, the pair were married. Gary graduated and took a job as a plant engineer. Gary was friends with a man named Bob Holderman, who was a mechanic, and Bob's going to play a part in our story kind of later on. But anyway, he's a mechanic, and the buddies were both into fast cars and racing. So when Gary started spending a lot of time with Bob, Connie seemed to inject herself into every situation. Bob and his wife, Joan, noticed how Connie would try to spend time alone with Bob, like when his wife, Joan, wasn't around.
Oh.
Red flag, right? And let's be honest. I mean, it is a little odd as a married woman to want to spend time with your husband's married best friend, unless there is some sort of established like group friendship dynamic.
It's beyond strange.
Now, I typed this out and then immediately thought about how I used to hang out with your best friend.
Yeah.
Like we would go on trips out of state to buy fence supplies together. And then his wife would be calling him, like, and he's driving with me. But it didn't seem weird.
No.
But from maybe an outsider's perspective, people would be like, why are they alone together? I mean, I guess maybe it seemed weird.
Wait, you're making it weird. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I was totally fine with it. But I could see some people... You know, some people sometimes
you're probably fine with it
can't.
because you know me and you knew that the relationship was absolutely platonic on both sides, that we're friends and we all kind of hung out and it was not
but obviously
like a weird thing.
What Connie's doing in this situation
right
is not because they're both the wife and husband are commenting on it. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're both noticing how it seems odd.
That's the thing, because Bob was on to Connie and even told his wife so. Like, she's making me feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's a good husband.
She keeps trying to get up in my business.
Yeah, she had her hands in my pants. And I'm not down for that.
Oh, no.
They were cold and scaly.
What is she, like a dragon? They were gnarled like an old tree branch.
Beware the Peter Puffer.
What's a Peter Puffer?
It's like a woman dragon just trying to get that Peter.
Is that a fish? A Peter Puffer? Okay. So, Gary, Bob went out of his way to avoid any entanglement that might ruin his friendship with Gary. So he's purposely trying to avoid Gary's wife. Connie attended community college while the couple was married and eventually took a job with the city of Fairmont, West Virginia. Connie's wandering eye led her to a lawyer named James Esposito. She had an affair with this man. Connie's first brush with the law was in 1978. Connie was employed as a bookkeeper and clerk for the city of Fairmont, and she was accused of felony theft. She had ordered tires and had them billed to the Water and Sewer Board, like personal tires for her vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah. She was given a 5-year sentence, but it was suspended after agreeing to restitution and 2 years of supervised probation. Her lover, James Esposito, would later be found guilty in 1985 on federal racketeering and narcotics charges. He, along with 17 others, were convicted for conspiring to bring large amounts of cocaine from Miami to the Northeast. So already Connie is maybe not making great decisions.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
In 1983, Gary accepted a job in LaGrange, Georgia with a manufacturing company. The family purchased a home in a Tony subdivision called Eagles Rest on West Point Lake. Gary thought this was a chance for the family to kind of start over new. Fred was described as a man who would give you the shirt off his back. He coached Little League and was a volunteer fireman. If anyone needed help, Fred was a phone call away. Like if your car broke down, if you needed somebody to come over and help you clean the gutters, drive your mama to the doctor, Fred was the guy.
Drop you off at the airport.
He would do anything for people he knew. Carolyn Wilkerson was a no-nonsense woman who was independent and worked outside the home. Devoted to her family, she and Fred raised their children in, like a working class kind of situation. She didn't make a lot of demands of Fred. He was a good provider and a solid husband. And life in their household had been stable, like even good. They had a good marriage. 21 years is a long time to be with somebody. But things started to change in 1983. That's when Connie came to work in the office at Gusto Brands, a beverage distributor in LaGrange. Fred was the warehouse manager, and he'd been a longtime employee. Now, it wasn't long before their paths crossed, and Connie found a sympathetic ear. She told Fred stories of her bad marriage, about mistreatment and abuse. Connie, who had learned to manipulate people and situations, took advantage of Fred's gullibility. Now, at first, things appeared innocent enough. Connie asked Fred if he would do some yard work and handyman stuff around the house. Stuff her husband's just not doing.
Oh, my God.
Which is relatable. Now, Connie seemed to always have a problem or crisis that required Fred's attention. And since Fred was this really nice guy who was always willing to help his friends, he came to the rescue. It didn't even seem strange when Connie began calling Fred at home where he lived with his wife and kids. Dylan, what do you think about this?
Well, if some chick I work with's calling me at home, talking about, will you come unclog my drain? Or you talking about, will you come fix my pipes? No, I don't think you would be okay with that, would you?
I mean, if you want to go unclog her pipes.
No. You would be like, man, who this bitch? Who this? Who this?
I'd be like, who both these bitches?
What do you think? I mean, do you think there's...
Well, it seems to me, okay. In my many life experiences, it seems to me that anytime you have this work situation, you got this work wife, this work husband, that term, whatever. When someone starts confiding in you about their marital problems,
No, that's crossing the line.
I feel like that opens a door, or that's an invitation for an emotional affair to start.
Well, it
or
is
a physical affair.
Well, it's an invitation to intimacy.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And you're crossing, and some people laugh. Oh, I got the work wife or work husband or something, and what they are is they're actually just friends. They become friends that work together.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's all it is. But
I think when you start confiding like personal information and you're like kind of leaning on this person,
yeah,
this sort of opens a door, especially when you're talking about your spouse.
Yeah,
to this person.
And that's something I don't think you should, even if, because everyone has the, little things that bug them that their spouse does. Even if you're in the most, I mean, they're just really small, insignificant things. But, and even if you truly, truly love that person, but I don't think it's appropriate to complain about your spouse to someone else.
Is it okay to complain about your spouse to like thousands
public,
of listeners
all over the world?
Podcast?
That's fine.
Okay.
But,
Dylan, I have to say, there's nothing that you do that bugs me.
Oh,
I love you so much, and I accept you for who you are.
Oh, so sweet.
Even if it makes me need to take medication.
No, but let alone someone of, it doesn't even have to be the opposite sex. Someone that you could possibly
I think there's
grow feelings for. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think there's a different, it's, if you have a friend, a best friend, whatever, and you talk about your relationship issues with your best friend, like someone who's been in your life for a long time, to me, that's kind of, that's acceptable. But he just met this woman. He's only known her for like a very short period, and it's already evolved into this relationship where she's telling him all of her personal problems and counting on him to do like household things that, she's married. She has a husband. Like her husband should be things that they're doing together. Right. You know what I mean? It's kind of odd.
And I think she's certainly the one accelerating or pushing the relationship in that direction. And now it's not uncommon to, if you worked with someone for a long time, to maybe know more about their personal, you know what I mean? Like that was the point you were making. You kind of, because some people don't have people outside of work to, talk to. They don't have a lot of friends and stuff like that. So it can be a tricky situation.
So here we have Connie. She starts working at this Gusto Brands. I think it's in July of 1983. Now, Tim recalled an incident when Connie had called his father Fred over to, quote, locate a snake in a woodpile.
Look, it's one thing if the pipe snapped off under your cabinet and your husband's not around and you don't know where the, main water turn off, and it's kind of a disaster. I need some help. But this is ridiculous. This is obviously just a A reason to make contact.
Oh, no. There's a snake in the wood pile. Oh, can you come dig it out?
Yeah.
I mean, I might call somebody, but only because I'm fucking freaking out, like about ready to like leave my house forever.
But you on the phone would not be sexy at all with the snake in the woodpile. You would be terrified.
I'd be screeching. I'd be like, what is happening? So after spending a great deal of time attempting to locate this snake, it was never found. Because Tim actually goes with his dad to Connie's house to try to find the snake. And he's he's young at this time, but he's like, there was no snake. After only a few short months, Fred moved out of his family home and into the Versailles apartments. His roommate was Roger, the fiance of his daughter, Tracy. So we're talking, she comes to work in July, and in September, Fred moves out of the family home.
Damn.
So in a very short period of time.
Well, that goes to show it wasn't all Connie. You see what I'm saying?
Well, it's not all Connie.
So Fred must have been been in a place in his relationship where he wasn't happy and things like that. And yeah, he might be a nice guy, a little bit naive and gullible, but at the same time, he seems to be a willing participant. That's why he went and dug in that woodpile.
Connie got something that Fred wants. I don't know what it is.
It ain't no snake in a woodpile.
Maybe it's some lemon custard. I don't know. It didn't take long for Carolyn Wilkerson to file for divorce in December of 1983. I mean, and this is really just only a couple of months after Fred has met Connie. She's come to work there, and then he's already moved out. I mean, this is all happening within like 5 months' time. Fred moved into Commerce Court Apartments at the time Carolyn filed for divorce, and folks say Connie was a regular visitor to Fred's apartment. A year later, Fred purchased a modest house at 1360 Youngs Mill Road. Connie had given Fred the $6,600 needed for the down payment. A few months later, Fred purchased 3 adjoining acres to this property.
No, Connie gave Fred the down payment?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, a month later, in April of 1985, Connie's husband, Gary, begins questioning where $6,600 had gone.
Yeah. Hey, baby, did you see those thousands of dollars I had? Have you seen those?
Connie explained that she had loaned the money to her friend in need, Fred, and that he had promised to pay it back. Connie told Gary that Fred was now refusing to pay back this loan. So Gary files a civil lawsuit against Fred for the $6,600. Fred sold the house to his son-in-law, Roger, who then paid back Connie and Gary. It was around this time that Connie started pressuring Fred to take out a life insurance policy for $20,000, making her the sole beneficiary.
Why? Under what pretense?
I don't know, Dylan.
You're my friend. I should be the beneficiary of your life insurance.
You were entering
policy?
me behind my husband's back. You should put me down for your life insurance.
You know we're screwing and stuff. So I mean, you might as well change all your stuff over my name.
By mid-1985, Connie was fired from Gusto Brands for some undisclosed reason. She went to work at a Honda dealership. Fred then purchased a mobile home and placed it on this acreage that he had acquired on Youngs Mill Road. Connie often visited the trailer. She would usually park in back, hiding her car under a tarp.
Now can we talk about Fred? What's going on in his life?
I don't know.
He's went from long-term relationship, married, to moving to an apartment, leaving his wife, divorcing, then buying a house, then having to sell that house, and now he's down to not that there's anything wrong with it, but now he's down to probably a single wide on a little speck of land somewhere.
Yeah.
So his life's heading into like almost a downward trajectory, honestly.
It's called the power of the P, Dylan.
Wars have been fought.
Fred is a middle-aged man, maybe suffering from some kind of like midlife crisis. And here's Connie, and I've seen her, and she's no looker, but
she's fanning that.
But a
around.
man, maybe in the early 80s, maybe she was maybe she was 80s hot. I don't know.
Well, you know what? Sometimes the inner beauty.
But here she's she's spreading a welcoming invitation for Fred, and he is into it, okay? Maybe he just wants to feel wanted.
She's flagging.
I'm not sure what's happening.
You know what that is?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's when, animals, the female lets you know it's time.
When you were saying it's flagging, I'm like, what, she's standing on the side of the road with like an orange flag, letting you know whether
One of
you
those
can
sign
pass
spinners?
or go. Yeah.
She got sign spinners.
I don't know what that means.
Big flashing arrows.
She's stabbing a flag in his chest, like, I declare this man in the name of Connie.
She's letting him know it's time.
Like it's business time?
Yes, just like that.
Like they took out the recycling and now that's not part of it, but now it's time.
Yes.
I see. So again, Connie's visiting this trailer. She's parking in the back. She's hiding her car under a tarp. Nothing suspicious here. The affair between Connie and Fred continued until October of 1985, when she finally filed for a divorce from Gary. In April of 1986, Fred bought 14.5 acres of land on Ware Cross Road with plans to build a house, a place where he could start this new life with Connie.
See, this is back when you could get a chunk of land for, $18,000. You know what I mean?
In October, Fred added Connie to the deed, and together they took out a construction loan for $89,000 from First Federal Savings and Loan. Dylan, this is also back when you could build a house for $89,000.
Yeah.
Like a big, nice, awesome house, right?
Gosh, those were the days.
By July, Connie had urged Fred to drop a will, which would leave her everything. Fred was set on building their dream home. He even got a contractor's license in order to finish the Ware Cross home, moving into this house while he's completing the construction. In the meantime, Connie urged Fred to, quote, find a, better job, which paid him more money. Despite the fact that he had worked his way up to being the warehouse manager at Gusto Brands. After 15 years at the company, Fred quit to appease Connie. He took a job driving a truck for fast food merchandisers. Now, nothing was ever good enough for Connie. Despite the fact that Fred had quit his job and was also in the process of building them their dream home, Connie needed more. She wanted a swimming pool at the new house. So Fred was urged to take out a loan for $10,000. Since Fred's finances were extended with the purchases of land and this construction loan, he needed a cosigner. Fred's friend Don Rainey agreed to help in spring of 1987. Now, in May of 1987, Connie moved into this under construction house. Though it was under construction, right, she brings her 2 young sons, Garrett and Garen, to live there. Fred was already living in the house with his son, Tim. Now, Connie's divorce was still not finalized. She's been in the process of divorce for 2 years. Like, she's filed, but then has never moved forward with the actual proceedings.
Yeah, and you said Fred, their divorce went down in months.
Yeah. Like within a matter of a few months.
So, and they're in the same state. So
Yeah,
there's
in Georgia.
really no reason that Connie couldn't have wrapped up the divorce.
Right. It seemed she was dragging her feet. And then she told Fred that her lawyer recommended that it would look better in custody court if she owned property. So on May 8th of 1987, Fred gave Connie full control of the deed.
Look, somebody come get Fred. Is this your daddy over here? Come get him and sit him down and tell him that this is some bullshit, dude.
He seems completely mesmerized by Connie's bosom or something.
It's one thing to be like, okay,
he's entranced.
I'm gonna put you on. I'll add your name to the deed, and together we can own it because I want to be with you, and I'm fine with that. But she's talked him into giving her full control, signing the property over completely to her.
Yes.
Oh my God.
2 weeks later, Connie applied for a mortgage loan for $123,000 in order to repay this construction loan that she and Fred have taken out together. Connie needed a cosigner, so she asked Clarence Fincher, the owner of the Honda dealership where she worked, to vouch for her. Clarence was a recent widower who had lost his wife of 55 years. So it seemed that Connie had found an easy mark in this grieving elderly man.
My God, man, these people just throw around co-signing. You know, there's been times in my life when I needed a co-signer. And like most people's, it's a big deal, right? Because they're assuming all the responsibility of the loan with you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And you're the one that is, you know, obviously meant to pay it, and you carry that burden. So they're counting on you. It's a big deal.
Yeah, I'm counting on you right now, Dylan.
Now, can I imagine
So pay your note.
asking someone outside of my wife to co-sign for me, but let alone on property and these huge loans? I mean, and people just like, yeah, sure, Connie, I'll help you.
It just goes to show Connie has something. I don't know if she's just so incredibly talented as a manipulator.
Some people just are like that,
Or-
and they find these people.
Or if she's got, if there's something else that's bringing the boys to the yard.
You think it's gold lined?
I don't know.
Well, you
It
know,
must be platinum plus up in there.
some people just have this. It's a talent. It's an ability to kind of talk, and then they find that here's what their talent
Is targeting,
is finding the right
certain-
person
finding the right victim.
and telling that person exactly or treating them exactly the way they want to be treated, or telling them exactly what they want to hear, or a lot of times they will do the sob story, like, oh, you're the only one that can help me, you know, it's shit like that.
By Labor Day weekend of 1987, things took a stark turn. Connie started an argument with Tim Wilkerson, Fred's teenage son. She called police, and when they arrived, Fred and Tim were arrested for criminal trespassing.
On Fred's land.
Removed from the property, they were taken to jail. A deputy would later be required to escort the father and son back to their home to fetch their belongings. The following day, Gary Queden moved into the Ware Cross house with his wife and sons.
What? Gary's back?
Gary Queden.
Was he-
I don't know what his name
Was
is.
he just hiding out there in the woodshed waiting for her to throw old Fred out?
Well, no, they've got this really nice house in a gated, on the lake, big fancy home. But now Gary's moving in with her in this other house.
In this under construction home.
Look, I don't understand these people at all. Now, it was at this time that this $10,000 loan started coming due. And Fred, who's now in this financial bind because all of his money is tied up in this house and property, can't repay this loan. Don Rainey had to step in and cover it. Don, who had always been under the impression that Connie was bad news from the start, made Fred agree to a condition. If Don repaid the loan, Fred had to see a lawyer. Don was convinced that Connie had been a con artist from the start and had intentionally scammed Fred.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't think you have to be a Rhodes Scholar to maybe think that.
Quickly, Fred and Tim needed to find a place to live, and they moved into a duplex. Don urged Fred to meet with an attorney named H.J. Thomas to see if there was any recourse for securing either the money or the property back. On November 24th of 1987, Thomas filed a lawsuit on Fred's behalf, asking for $37,071.21 in monies. And this was monies that Fred had paid out of pocket to purchase property and for building materials, etc.
He kept the receipts.
He had the receipts. With the Thanksgiving holiday coming up, the lawsuit would definitely impact Connie. So on Tuesday, November 25th, she was served with the civil suit. Connie immediately called Fred, cussing him like a dog.
Well, see, these master manipulators like this, anytime they're presented or challenged with their own bullshit, or you know, held to account in any way, or even questioned, it doesn't just aggravate them, or it enrages them. I mean, it's almost like an unnaturally mad. I mean, it really does You don't know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
They're like blood. It sends them to like a blood rage. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it, but
Like, how dare you question me when I've just fucked you over?
Yeah, knowing damn well that
you're supposed to take it and like it.
you're not ever supposed to question them or make them, and a lot of times what it is as if other people find out. You know what I'm saying? Like everyone's going to know about this, or what will other people think? That drives them crazy too.
Hi, Mom. So, Gary and Connie had plans to travel to Florida for the Thanksgiving holiday. They had made arrangements, going as far as hiring Joan Holderman, their friend, to care for their pets. Connie called Joan to say that she was no longer needing care for the animals because Connie was not going to Florida after all. Gary and the boys were just going to go without her. When Joan asked why Connie wasn't joining her family, Connie said, quote, "I need to stay behind and protect my property." Joan didn't know what she meant by this, but was just like, okay, cool.
Okay.
Not coming over. The last person who likely saw Fred alive on Thanksgiving night was Tim's girlfriend, Tiffany Roberts. She'd stopped by the duplex where the father and son lived around 11 p.m. Fred was sleeping at the time and was awakened by her visit. He explained that Tim was out with friends and wouldn't be back until later. Tiffany apologized for waking Fred up and left. And then it wasn't until 1 a.m. when Tim returned to the apartment that he found his father was gone. So sometime between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m., this 2-hour window is when Fred up and disappeared, up and vanished. With Fred missing, law enforcement did what they could to investigate, but there was no direct evidence. Adult missing persons cases are hard and often get pushed aside when law enforcement needs to focus resources on other cases. Now, in December of 1987, just a few days after Fred has gone missing, his 1987 Honda was located at the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. In a parking space.
Oh, so he must have gotten a flight.
Well, a Georgia Bureau of Investigation evidence tech was brought in to search the car. The vehicle appeared to be wiped clean. There were no fingerprints and nothing that offered up any information on Fred Wilkerson. There were also several uncashed payroll checks belonging to Fred inside the car. It was unlikely that Fred had left, especially without taking any money.
Well, look, when you find a vehicle that's been wiped, if you will, which is just not going to show just think about your car. How many fingerprints of yours and everyone else who's had a ride with you recently? There's fingerprints everywhere, right? All over the place. And so just the very fact that it's been wiped clean lets you know something not good is happening.
Well, in the beginning, Connie met with the sheriff's office for an interview. She refused to take a polygraph exam. Connie claimed there had been no romantic relationship between she and Fred Wilkerson. Fred and his son had resided in the same house with her for several months. She did admit that, and she did admit that she had demanded that he leave Labor Day weekend of 1987. But according to Tim, Connie had lived in the basement while Fred stayed upstairs. But it was clear to everybody that Fred and Connie were engaged or had been involved in a romantic relationship.
Then why would he sign his property over to you if you're not together? I mean, come on.
Fred had been building this home on Ware Cross Road, which was to become their marital residence. He's telling people we're going to get married when she's divorced. We're building our dream home. We're going to get married and move into this house together.
We're building a life together.
Yes. From 1984 until the time he disappeared, Fred had included Connie in just about every aspect of his life. They showed up at family functions together. Fred seemed to be working hard to build a life with Connie. Records dating back to 1983 painted real estate transactions involving the pair. There are photographs of Connie and Fred together displaying more than just a he's my handyman friend vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, he's taken her to, like, family functions. Like, this is my girlfriend.
They got airbrush t-shirts from Myrtle Beach.
They're holding hands and kissing. in front of family. I mean, it doesn't get any more obvious. She's hiding her car behind his trailer. Connie had a reputation for being violent with people who disagreed with her, and she refused to cooperate with law enforcement, hired a lawyer, and began threatening legal action. So the case just goes cold, Dylan, all the way up until 1995.
Damn.
So for about 7 years, nobody knows what's happened to Fred. Connie then files an action in probate court to have Fred Wilkerson declared dead. She also requested to be the executor of Fred's estate. Connie had 2 life insurance policies on Fred, which she had paid religiously over the past 7 years.
So this is what people who aren't together do, right? They show up in probate court and try to have someone declared dead so they can access the funds from the life insurance policy they have on that person.
This bitch.
That they've paid religiously.
Now, the Wilkerson family was shocked when they heard what Connie was doing. Objecting, they hired an attorney named Peter Alford to defend in a protracted probate hearing. A settlement was negotiated in which Connie could get $10,000 back on the insurance policy she had paid. So basically, she could get she could recoup the money she had spent on insurance policies.
Which would be from the family?
No, this would be like, I guess if the insurance paid out, she could recoup her money that she had paid for the policy.
Oh, and then get the rest of it?
But she can't have the rest of the money, only what she paid for the policy.
Okay.
So she's going to get $10,000 back because that's what she had paid out over 7 years on these policies. But that's it. She's not going to get the insurance money. Alford pushed to have the missing persons case reopened, citing the financial ties between Fred and Connie. Alford contacted a newspaper who began covering the story. It was through a published article that Lisa Holderman, daughter of Bob and Joan, remember they had been Gary and Connie's friends, learned that the missing man, Fred Wilkerson's car, had been found years earlier at the Atlanta airport. Now, Bob and Joan had been friends with Gary and Connie up in West Virginia, and when Gary and Connie had moved to Georgia, Gary had found his friend work, so Bob and Joan basically followed their friends down to Georgia.
Yeah, which is common in that type of like engineering, plant work, especially if you're in management. People like their friends kind of go along with them.
Lisa, who was 17 in 1987, had a very interesting story of her own. She phoned the attorney Peter Alford. Thanksgiving weekend, 1987, Lisa had received a call from Connie asking for a favor. Connie needed someone to follow her to the airport in Atlanta and then pick her up, from the airport.
Okay, so you don't need to get dropped off to catch a plane. You just need to get a ride back from the airport when you drive there.
17-year-old Lisa agrees to this. Connie gave her some story about a friend needing to return a rental car. The friend had been drinking and was unable to drive the car to the airport, so Connie was going to take it and drop it off. Some of the details of the story did not make sense to Lisa, but, being 17, whatever, being a kid, young, whatever, she didn't really press for more information.
She doesn't care.
And at the time, she doesn't really care. Exactly. So upon hearing this tip, Alford contacts police to let them know that Lisa Holderman had information relating to Fred Wilkerson's case. They waited and waited and waited, but law enforcement never followed up. A few days after the Thanksgiving weekend, Connie paid Lisa and her sister to help with some brush on the property. Connie was suddenly very concerned about an abandoned well on this land, saying it was a big danger to the children. Connie paid Lisa to drag brush, and at some point, Connie tried to set the brush on fire. It smoldered, but it didn't burn. Lisa also recalled that after this, Connie hired a man with an excavator to fill in the well. Yet Lisa and her family were afraid to push too hard with this information because they had seen Connie's volatile outbursts firsthand, and they knew she was a dangerous person, and they didn't want to cross Connie.
Oh my God.
So despite all this information, having contacted police, never getting a return call, they just kind of let it go. By 2003, Connie and Gary were in the midst of divorce again. A cold case investigator who had recently solved the murder of a woman named Gwendolyn Moore was brought in to reopen the case. Clay Bryant had a conversation with Peter Alford regarding the airport tip. Bryant knew right away that he needed to speak with Lisa Holderman. Living in Charleston, South Carolina, Lisa agreed to meet with Bryant and relayed the story of her involvement with Connie around the time of Fred Wilkerson's disappearance. So tells him, I picked her up from the airport. We did this brush work. There was the well on the property.
The well, that's going to pique anyone's interest.
Lisa's father, Bob Holderman, knew the location of the well on Connie's property, and Gary had even lived with the Holdermans for a period after separating from Connie. Bob made it very clear to Detective Bryant that he had sworn off Connie, like he's friends with Gary and has been, but that he swore off being friends with Connie back in 1995 when he had learned that she had involved his daughter Lisa in this airport pickup and that something was sketchy about it.
Oh.
So at that point, he's pretty much like done with Connie. So here we are, 2003, and he's not really had anything to do with Connie in like 8 years. He knew the name of the man that Connie had hired to fill in the well, though. Helpful information. At the time, Connie had contacted the Holdermans to ask if they had anything they needed to get rid of, like old appliances or trash, because she was trying to fill up this well, and people could put their trash in it, and then she's going to have someone come and put dirt in it.
Well, this is a well-known.
Fill it in.
It's a well-known tradition. It's a well filling in party.
Is it?
Yeah, I've been to a few in my day.
What was you putting in the well?
Well, just bodies.
Like an old couch or something?
Just the bodies I had laying around.
Okay.
Yeah, an old couch. But I cram your old couch in my well.
Ex-wife, a couch.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
God, I mean, wait a sec. I mean, who even calls people and asks them shit like this? I mean, seriously.
Well, no, I mean,
Hey, you guys got
look, I've lived in the country and I have known people who've done this kind of thing.
Oh,
Hey, we're going to have a trash burning party, like a big fire if you want to bring over your shit and burn it.
So, but yeah, we're filling in the sinkhole if you got to get rid of any stuff.
No, I have heard of this is not an uncommon thing.
Right.
Guess.
Well, I've known of people to fill in a spot of land and they'll throw anything in there once they're, before they start bringing the dirt and stuff like that in, just filler.
Just throw in a little old razzle dazzle in there and everything else.
You got an old car you want to get rid of?
Connie hired a man named Jesse Peterson to do the job. Now, after meeting with Bob Holderman, Detective Bryant was driving through town and happened to spot Peterson at a gas station. Peterson had a lot to say about Connie. Connie hired Jesse to do work with his Bobcat. Jesse had recently retired from the Army back in 1995 and had met Connie through his father. Jesse's father and Connie had gone to church together. And Jesse was starting a business with heavy equipment and landscaping at the time. Connie offered to help grow his business as she was a bookkeeper and also told Jesse that he could store his equipment on her property. If he needed a place to put some of this equipment.
Okay, so you got this guy who's starting a new venture, and that's always a big deal when you start getting equipment like that. Where are you going to put it?
Yeah.
You might have to rent a spot. Is it going to be safe? All that stuff. So I could see someone, if you have some out of the way land where there's plenty of room, and it's free, that would be a tempting offer.
Well, yeah, and I mean, he's just out of the Army. He doesn't really know Connie, but she must be a decent person. She goes to church with his dad.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, how many people hide under that, guys?
Well, it didn't take long for this relationship to sour. Jesse felt Connie was trying to exercise control over his business. And when Jesse told her the arrangement was no longer working for him, Connie went ballistic. She attacked Jesse's truck with a hammer, causing damage, and the sheriff's office had to escort him onto the property to reclaim his equipment. Can you imagine this crazy woman coming out with a hammer and like just beating the hell out of your truck?
No.
I mean, what the hell?
But damn it, lady, I'm going to hit you.
Jesse
In my truck.
Jesse told Detective Bryant, quote, "That woman has the devil in her." He also said that Connie could have killed Fred Wilkerson. Jesse had seen Connie, quote, "work like a man," performing intense physical labor like running chainsaws, carrying fence posts, and heavy feed bags. Connie also owned an ATV at the time, which could have aided in moving this body. Jesse Peterson, I'm sorry, I said he had come back in 1995. This was in 1987 when he meets her. So in 1987, at this time, Connie had this ATV, which Jesse said this could have aided in moving the body. Like if she had killed Fred in the house, she could have easily, taken him over to the well and dumped him in there. Jesse Peterson had offered up some pretty solid information on Connie. This is some of the first, real good lead or what, when it comes to what happened to Fred.
Right.
We've got a suspect. We need to focus on Connie. Now, with the new information from the Holdermans and Jesse Peterson, Clay Bryant went to the district attorney to seek a search warrant. The DA agreed, and soon it was on the desk of a judge. Judge Alan Keeble, who had a reputation for being very fair-minded and straightforward, signed off on the warrant. The warrant authorized a search of Connie's property as well as an excavation of the well. Now, this was a huge task to coordinate because you got the effort between the different agencies that need to come together. You've got to find somebody with equipment to pull off this excavation, but you also can't just hire anybody. It has to be skilled people to dig up this well. They only had 10 days from the time the search warrant was signed to basically
enact
to get this done.
Okay.
Yeah. So Detective Bryant contacted a GBI forensic anthropologist named Dr. Rick Snow, who was renowned in his field. Dr. Snow agreed to perform the excavation on September 30th of 2003. It was a huge undertaking to remove the dirt from the well without destroying any potential evidence. So, Dylan, if they had to dig down 30 feet, then they needed to dig 30 feet down, but they had to dig 60 feet wide to keep the well from collapsing in on itself.
Right.
So it could be really tricky.
Yeah, and you got to go slow and easy and know what you're looking at. So, yeah, I mean, it's an arduous task.
One thing they had on their side was the element of surprise. Though Detective Bryant had informed Fred's kids, Tracy and Tim, of the search, they were asked not to tell anybody else because no one needed to tip off Connie. Troup County Sheriff Captain Willie Grizzard and Clay Bryant executed the search warrant at the Ware Cross Road home. However, Connie didn't answer. This was on the morning of September 30th. It was a man who was living with her at the time named Terry Burris who answered the door.
Oh, my God.
So she's divorcing her husband, already got a new guy living in Fred's house. Burris informed detectives that Connie was at the Salvation Army, quote, doing her Christian work.
What?
I don't know why that tickled me. Terry Burris was ordered to call Connie quickly and tell her basically, get home. When Connie arrived, her demeanor was cocky and arrogant. She said very nonchalantly, quote, "You didn't need a warrant. You can search all you like." She even agreed to sign a consent to search. Dr. Snow was authorized to begin the dig, and this was just a little bit after 9 a.m. that Connie has come. She signed a consent.
Yeah, I got nothing to hide.
Connie told investigators, quote, "If he's down there, I don't know anything about it."
Which is a very weird statement.
So while they are waiting on this dig, these detectives are kind of sitting in the house with Connie. And they notice that she goes from being icy cool and calm to anxious and panicked.
Wouldn't you say there's no way he's not here? There's no bodies buried here on this property?
I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, that's like when you get out and the cops ask you if there's any drugs in the car and you say, not that I know of.
It wasn't me.
I mean, you could say
Did we
that.
not learn anything from Shaggy? It wasn't me.
Yeah, you can say that to a cop.
If it was
just
on the
messing
counter,
with them.
it wasn't me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just always feign ignorance.
Not that I know of.
It works for my husband.
If
It
you-
wasn't me. I didn't do it.
If you
I don't even know what you're talking about.
If you find some, they're not mine. If you find some drugs tucked under the seat where I was sitting, I don't know. Where
I'm
they came
automatically going to point to you and blame you for it.
from. I don't have any drugs.
It's him. He did it. There's no loyalty here, Dylan.
Damn, that's good to know.
You're welcome.
We're not going to commit any crimes together.
I'm automatically going to tell on you.
You're a shitty co-defendant. You know that?
Well, I'm too OCD for jail.
Oh, I don't want to go to jail. I can't even go to a dirty bar.
No, I can't either. Now, okay, so she goes from just like icy cool, cocky, arrogant
To freaking out.
to anxious, kind of freaking out. She starts pacing around the house, can't sit still. You know, her little hands are just going. She can't stand it.
Well, see, that's when they surprised her. But her natural inclination is to act superior, in control.
She's smarter than everybody in the room.
I'm smarter than everybody in the room. But that's just that's almost like a reflex
You
for
can't
her.
catch me. I'm the gingerbread man.
Yeah, but
all those things.
that's a reflex, and now it's settling, it's sinking in.
It's the reflex.
The reflex is to be like, "Oh, I'm so cool," but in reality, she's freaking out inside.
Well, you know, Duran Duran sang about the reflex.
That's what I heard.
It's waiting. It's waiting by the phone or something.
I don't know how that song goes. Apparently, I don't know much Duran Duran. This has come up over the years.
All I know is there's a line that I'm dancing on the Valentine or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Sounds awesome.
Okay, so while Connie is freaking out and she's pacing and she's walking around and it's obvious that her cool has, melted away or whatever, that's when they began asking Connie questions. They want to start applying the pressure, Dylan.
That's right.
Now, over the years, there had been inconsistencies in her stories, though she had mostly refused to answer questions and had always lawyered up. The few things she would tell police, they were very inconsistent. So when Connie is in this agitated state, that's when Detective Bryant started asking her questions like why she didn't go on that Thanksgiving trip to Florida back in 1987. Connie had claimed previously that she had not spoken to Fred since mid-November. Like, that's what she told the cops the first time they interviewed her. It was something like November 11th was the last time she had spoken to Fred. But in probate court, Connie testified that she had spoken to Fred, after receiving that lawsuit on November 24th of 1987, that they had had a phone call discussing a possible resolution.
See, this is why and this is a great technique on the investigators' part. This is why depositions are such a big deal, because you're on the record. You're swearing to tell the truth. Under
The whole truth
and nothing but the truth.
The truth?
Under penalty of the law, perjury. And so those words can certainly be used against you, especially if they're inconsistent.
Connie said she must have forgotten about the phone call. So she forgot it in 1987, but she remembered it in probate court in 1995.
Ah.
When confronted with Lisa Holderman's story about the airport pickup, that's when Connie really started freaking out. And that's also when Connie spun an outrageous tale that would leave the investigators reeling. So according to Connie, are you ready for this wild story?
I could only imagine.
Now, according to Connie, she had phoned Fred Wilkerson late on Thanksgiving night and had asked him to come over so they could talk. Can we just talk?
Let's go ahead and hash this out.
Let's work it out. Connie claimed that she was in the laundry room sawing through some sort of tubing, like a metal rod or something.
You said she was changing out the closet rods.
She was sawing through some sort of tubing for closet rods. Okay?
Which is, you know how often people have to change their closet rods?
Well, I have before because my stuff's too heavy because I have too much stuff. Now, she heard Fred pull in, and then she noticed another car was following behind him. The vehicle was some kind of patrol car, but she didn't see which agency. So she doesn't know if it's like sheriff's department, law enforcement, state troopers. She doesn't know.
And this is late at night.
This is late at night. Sometime between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m.
Fred shows up to her house.
Yeah.
And they've already been having many problems amongst themselves. But he shows up at her house late, being followed by an unknown agency.
Yes.
Car.
Could be the FBI. She's not sure. A uniformed officer and a woman in a nurse's uniform stepped out of the car. An argument ensued between Fred and the couple. Fred then gets into the car with this couple and drives away, leaving behind his Honda. Connie never saw Fred again. The next day, an anonymous caller told Connie that she needed to dispose of the car by leaving it at the airport, or else her children would be harmed. Scared, Connie felt she had only one choice: to get rid of Fred's car. And the most shocking part of the story, Dylan, the man in the uniform, according to Connie, was Captain Willie Grizzard, who was sitting in her living room at that moment.
What the dude?
Captain Grizzard was stunned by Connie's accusation.
He's just half listening, like thinking about what he's going to have for lunch. And he's like, what? Wait, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, to be like, I'm so smart and cool and calculating, and to just come up with a dumbest fucking story that anybody in the room's
And
ever.
it was you. It was you, Colonel Mustard.
Jesus.
Now, Dylan, we all know that lies need to be covered up with more lies, and eventually it spins out of control because a liar can't remember all the lies they've told.
It's called the onion lie. The
Connie-
lie onion.
So Connie was contradicting like everything she had said over the years. And around the time of this shocking admission, when we find out that Captain Grizzard was there with this nurse at Connie's house back in 1987.
Yeah, and he's still not told us what agency he worked for.
Yes. So by this time, it's around 10:30 a.m. and only an hour into the excavation, Dr. Snow calls Detective Brian at the house to say they've discovered human remains located about 17 feet down in the well.
Okay.
The remains were under trash and debris, some charred, which matched Lisa's story about Connie trying to burn brush and trash. The skeleton was rolled up in a carpet, which later they would find out matched the carpet that had been in the basement laundry room when Fred built the house.
So actually, it was in a nice little package, and it wasn't hard to discover, right?
Right.
And they're looking out for this. This is why they're there, to do this very type of search. And so it wasn't hard. As soon as they see the edge of this carpet while they're digging, they're like, hold on a second. Boom. An entire body, a whole skeleton.
Now the closet. I keep thinking
You still
about,
think about those rods.
I'm thinking about them rods. The clothing was consistent with Fred Wilkerson's, along with work keys in his jeans pocket and a tube of chapstick. Fred was known for always keeping chapstick in the front pants pocket. And the shirt he was wearing was actually in a photo that Clay Bryant had of him that his family had given them, or, given the police. There was also cut pipe and a rusted hacksaw rolled up in this carpet.
Okay.
It took hours to collect the evidence and bag it. There were bone fractures on the skeleton consistent with debris being dumped on the body. I mean, this was a dramatic turn of events. Finally, someone would be held accountable for the murder of Fred Wilkerson. Connie is immediately arrested and charged with murder. By now, 200 curiosity seekers had lined up around the property's perimeter to watch this massive dig, so everyone sees Connie come out of the house handcuffed. 17 years later, the house is still a crime scene. When they finally conduct a search of the house, investigators locate blood spatter on the laundry room wall.
17 years?
She had never properly cleaned the blood off the wall in the laundry room. It's almost like she wanted it there as a reminder of what she had gotten away with.
Damn.
An invoice for replacement carpet for the laundry room was found in the house, and there were firearms located in the house, and it was illegal for Connie to possess a firearm because she was a felon.
Oh, yeah.
Among the evidence collected from inside the residence was also 2 cassette tapes. Now, the first cassette tape is a recorded conversation between Connie and Gary. They're discussing 3 Walter pistols. Gary reminds Connie that there are only 2 pistols, which he had bought for their son. And he says to Connie, quote, "You made me get rid of the other one after the Fred thing."
Why did she record this and keep it? These are like trophies almost.
The second tape is a recorded conversation between Connie and Fred. This tape, you can hear her like cussing him out about this lawsuit. And then she threatens, quote, "Fred Wilkerson, you son of a bitch, I will kill you." Next, Gary is interviewed by Detective Bryant. He tells investigators that he'd returned from Florida to find a pistol just casually laying there on the basement floor. Well, of course, he's concerned because they have young kids, and he's also not sure why Connie would have a pistol just out and about on the floor. So when he asks her about it, she tells him, quote, "Get rid of it because we don't want to be implicated."
That's a great answer when you find a pistol.
Gary suspected that Connie had killed Fred, but being the loyal husband he was, Gary sold the pistol at a gun show in Columbus, Georgia, pretty soon after she told him to get rid of it. So either Gary was gullible or he was evil like Connie. Investigators couldn't determine which he was. Was Connie attempting to frame Gary for this murder by having him handle the pistol and then sell it so it will be tracked back to him?
Oh.
Police grapple whether they should arrest Gary and charge him along with his ex-wife, or was it more important to make some kind of deal with Gary in exchange for his testimony against Connie? Gary's alibi checked out. From Wednesday to Sunday over that Thanksgiving holiday back in 1987, he was in Florida with his children. Gary had purchased a new car before going on this Florida trip, and while they were in Florida, they had car trouble. Gary had taken the car to the dealership in Florida, so they were kind of able to trace like all of Gary's steps.
Even all those years later,
Yeah.
there's good records.
Gary was definitely not responsible for the murder of Fred Wilkerson, but ultimately the decision was made to charge Gary with evidence tampering. DNA at this time was a new science and still in its infancy. However, Dr. Snow extracted DNA from the remains to compare with Fred Wilkerson's relatives, and it was determined the remains did belong to the missing man. The prosecution had a pile of evidence against Connie, including canceled life insurance checks on Fred, those audio tapes, skeletal remains, blood spatter evidence. Connie's attorney, Arthur Edge, was a former state senator with a reputation for winning. Edge would fight to keep evidence from trial, but ultimately would lose. They actually wanted to, wheel in on a gurney Fred's skeletal remains.
Damn.
To show this is how we found this man. And here's this carpet. And he was rolled into this carpet. Yeah. I mean, that's quite a visual, right?
Well, no. I mean, yeah.
Connie spent 13 months in jail awaiting trial, which was finally set for November 1st of 2004. Carolyn, Fred's former wife, was battling cancer at the time. She told Clay Bryant that her hope was for justice for her children after all these years. And sadly, Carolyn passed away a few days before the trial would start. So she would never actually get to see Connie punished. There are always uncertainties about jurors and how they're going to interpret evidence. Yet when the trial began, prosecutor Pete Skandalaskis introduced evidence and testimony which painted Connie in a very negative light. Connie's son Garen testified that his mother had a bad temper and recalled hearing the conversation back in 1987 between his parents where they argued about disposing of this pistol.
Oh my gosh.
Arthur Edge attacked the case as circumstantial and that Connie was a victim of an overzealous prosecutor. His main defense was that Connie was this frail woman and just physically incapable of carrying out a murder and disposal alone.
There's just no way.
There's no way. Jesse Peterson's testimony refuted this claim, as he had witnessed Connie performing heavy manual labor. He also brought up the ATV, which Connie could have easily used to carry Fred's body from the house to the well. Dr. Snow testified that Fred Wilkerson had been shot in the back of the head from a steep angle. The state's theory was that Connie had lured Fred over to the house under the guise of discussing the lawsuit. She was working in the laundry room, sawing them rods, Dylan, and had likely asked Fred to help with the cutting.
Right.
So while he's bent over on the ground, probably like on his hands and knees, sawing this pipe with a hacksaw,
she executes
That's
him.
when Connie shoots him in the back of the head. Connie had then tried to set her husband up for the murder by planting his fingerprints on the pistol. Ultimately, Connie was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison. Connie has never accepted responsibility for her role in the murder and has never shown an ounce of remorse. In 2006, Connie filed an appeal, but it was rejected, so her life sentence was upheld.
And that doesn't surprise me.
Connie had destroyed Fred's family, ruined him financially, and then got angry when he tried to recover some of the money she had stolen from him. Connie took everything from Fred, including his life.
Damn.
Now, Dylan, before we close this episode, I have to add a few little details here that are strange. Oddly enough, Connie's son Garrett passed away at the age of 25. Now, according to Detective Bryant, Garrett had moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and married this Malaysian woman, and it seems like maybe it was sudden, like he had just met this woman and they got married kind of thing.
Right.
And Connie was very upset. Like, she was outraged that her son had gone off and married someone, like, without her approval, right? So after he came home to visit for a weekend to try to make things right with his mom, Garrett suddenly fell very ill and then died a few days later. Though there was no autopsy, Garrett's death mimicked ethylene glycol poisoning.
Antifreeze.
Like, he basically, all of his organs just shut down.
At 25.
Yeah.
Which is very abnormal.
Yeah.
And I can't believe there wasn't an autopsy, honestly.
Did Connie have a hand in this? And this is another strange thing that Clay Bryant found during his investigation. It was reported that when Connie was attending community college, there was an instructor who went missing under strange circumstances. So while Connie was a student, many rumors circulated that the instructor was having an affair with a student. Suddenly, he disappeared and his car was found at the airport.
Oh,
and
my
he's
gosh.
basically just disappeared. And that case has never been solved.
Damn, dude. You think she's a serial killer?
I don't know. But Clay Bryant hasn't ruled out that possibility.
Connie's off the chain, man.
She's a black widow.
I'm glad Connie's in jail, dude.
You think?
Yeah.
You think she's a bad person?
Well, I
Dylan?
could be fuck around and be a neighbor. You'd be like, man, I wish that old bitch would hush. And next thing you know, you're dead. Because Connie's a badass.
This woman's something else. So my main resource today was a book written by Clay Bryant, the detective. It's called The Cold Case of Fred Wilkerson. And actually, Fred's daughter, Tracy, is also credited as, I guess, being a co-author.
Oh.
Also, multiple newspaper articles from 2003, 95, 87.
I've never heard the story about Connie. And I just can't believe she takes from this man. And then, in the end, when he tries to recover just some, which I'm sure that wasn't even all the value of all that she had taken from him, honestly. It sends her into a murderous rage. And even in the end, he trusts her enough to go over to her house late at night when it's just the two of them. Poor Fred. He's the exact wrong type of guy to get tangled up with a woman like this.
Well, and it seems to me that Connie had a knack for,
Oh, yeah.
like, picking these men she knew she could control and manipulate.
Yeah.
It sounds like even with her husband, Gary.
Yeah.
Like, she knew she could give him a gun and say, hey, go get rid of this.
Or else.
Yeah, we don't want to be implicated.
You don't want to be next. I mean, implicated.
Yeah.
Jesus. Well, thank you for that, Heather. Once again, pulling it out deep out of the Mountain Murders vault.
I'm pulling it deep out of the vault, huh?
Yeah. Digging around in there.
Okay.
I can't wait till we'll see what you find next.
All right. Well, Dylan, thank you for sitting down with me to discuss this wild story, right?
It is a wild story, and thank you for all your hard work.
It's just so tragic to think about this family. Their father, their brother, their loved one is missing for all those years. And then you find out he's been tossed in a well with a bunch of trash.
By the person you suspected of having harmed him all those years.
And it makes you wonder, like, I mean, I've got to say, as a family member, you would have to stop and think, like, how did we go all this time without this case being solved when it was so obvious Connie had a hand in it?
Right.
And it probably could have been solved 7 years before, even the 17 years before. I mean, it could have been solved at multiple points in time.
Dude, it's usually the break in the case is 9 times out of 10 in the case file. And it just takes that new set of eyes or someone determined to finally bring a resolution to this case. But this detective, I have to say, I'm not surprised that he's closed multiple cold cases, because he kind of shook the trees and had some new evidence come out, like about the 17-year-old daughter, giving her a ride to the airport.
Yeah.
That was a pretty big bombshell there. But yeah, he's really good at his job, so I appreciate that.
All right. Well, until next time, Dylan. Bye.
Bye.